Hello everyone, welcome to my show. I'm the Empath and we're here with Babble. So we left off in Leviticus 19 is where we're starting. So yeah, let's just go right into it. So laws of holiness and justice. The Lord told Moses to say to the community of Israel, "Be holy, because I, the Lord your God, am holy. Each of you must respect his mother and his father, and must keep the Sabbath as I have commanded. I am the Lord your God. Do not abandon me and worship idols. Do not make gods of metal and worship them. I am the Lord your God. When you kill an animal for a fellowship offering, keep the regulations that I have given you, and I will accept the offering. The meat must be eaten on the day the animal is killed or on the next day. Any meat left on the third day must be burned because it is ritually unclean, and if anyone eats it, I will not accept the offering. Anyone who eats it will be guilty of treating as ordinary what is dedicated to me, and he will no longer be considered one of my people." Well, that seems a little extreme. But when you harvest your fields, do not cut the grain at the edges of the fields, and do not go back to cut the heads of grain that were left. Do not go back through your vineyard to gather the grapes that were missed or to pick up the grapes that have fallen. Leave them for poor people and foreigners. I am the Lord your God. See, that makes sense. That's a that's a nice thing to do. I like that. I like that sort of thing. Just, anything that you missed, leave that to poor people. Don't go through and get all the rest of it. Just leave that to the poor people. That way, you're at least leaving them something. And honestly, like that's a great idea. I like it. So, do not steal or cheat or lie. Do not make a promise in my name if you do not intend to keep it. That brings disgrace on my name. I am the Lord your God. Yeah, don't make promises that you can't keep. That's something that I'm trying to do. I should put that in my New Year's resolutions. I think I'll do that. Do not take advantage of anyone or rob him. Do not hold back the wages of someone you have hired, not even for one night. Do not curse a deaf man or put something in front of a blind man so as to make him stumble over it. Have reverence for me. I am the Lord your God. Yeah, there are people who do some of those things, like putting stuff in front of blind people, and that's like it's a prank sort of thing, and like I don't know. Depending upon like as far as I'm concerned, if that person is okay with it, then okay. But if you're doing something like you're being a real jerk, then no. I believe you get your butt kicked for doing something like that. Anyway, be honest and just when you make decisions in legal cases. Do not show favoritism to the poor or fear the rich. Do not spread lies about anyone, and when someone is on trial for his life, speak out if your testimony can help him. I am the Lord. Yeah, see, that's a good call. Like there are some people who they won't speak out because they're afraid for their own lives and such because of like corruption or mob or whatever. And it's just like, you know, how about we care for each other? Like honestly, like if I don't know. We as a society, we as a race need to care for each or species, whatever word. As humans, we should do things to be more loving and caring for each other. And it's just saddening and disheartening that we don't. We're incredibly selfish, and it breaks my heart to know. Do not bear a grudge against anyone, but settle your differences with him, so that you will not commit a sin because of him. Do not take revenge on anyone or continue to hate him, but love your neighbor as you love yourself. I am the Lord. Obey my commands. Do not crossbreed domestic animals. Do not plant two kinds of seed in the same field. Do not wear clothes made of two kinds of material. See, that just doesn't quite make sense to me. I mean, do not crossbreed domestic animals. I mean, if you're talking about try to make a cat get on with a dog, I can see why. Otherwise, I don't understand the do not crossbreed animals. I think that's what it's saying. Don't try and make like a cat and a dog or a squirrel and I like two different species. I think that's what it's saying because there were things like Jacob did you know like had them breed I think in such a way that they would produce a certain color pattern. So I think that's what it's saying. Like, don't try to mix the species sort of thing. Kind of basically the bestiality, except with a different race sort of thing or species. You know what I mean. But then it goes for like do not plant two kinds of seed in the same field. I mean, is that just because sometimes they can conflict with each other, so just smart? Maybe. And do not wear clothes made of two kinds of material. That I don't get. I mean, I, I don't know. I'd honestly have to understand what the proper context of it, because otherwise it doesn't make sense. Like some of the other stuff, don't lie, don't steal, you know, don't kill each other, worship God. Like some of that stuff makes sense. But then you get to something like that, don't wear clothes made of two kinds of material. That's not something that makes sense. So, that there are some things like that where it's like you can take it as you can go ahead and take it as, well, God said it, so don't do it. But the thing is, what's wrong with it? I mean, a lot of the rules that God has in here, they're like, as far as I'm concerned, there are two reasons for it. The first would be because love God. I mean, it's talking about do not abandon me and worship idols. Well, yeah, love God. So there's that. But then there's the others, which are like, don't murder. Well, that's because you're being mean to somebody else, and that can turn out not so well for you as well. So like, it makes sense. It's for your benefit. It's either a rule made to love God, or it's a rule made for your benefit. And they don't wear clothes made of two kinds of material seems like if anything it should be for your benefit, but I don't see why. The only other reason I can think of is because when God made clothing for Adam and Eve, it was out of one animal, so maybe something like that. I don't I don't get it. I don't get it. If you want to explain it, feel free to explain in the comments, and I will try to wrestle with that. Continuing on, if a slave girl is the recognized concubine of a man, and she has not been paid for and freed, then if another man has sexual relations with her, they will be punished, but not put to death, since she is a slave. The man shall bring a ram to the entrance of the tent of my presence as his repayment offering, and with it the priest shall perform the ritual of purification to remove the man's sin, and God will forgive him. Um, uh, okay. Uh, I guess that's just because at the time the concubine would have been a slave and would have been viewed as property, which slavery bad. People aren't property. But that was the time period. So okay. That's just whatever. When you come into the land of Canaan and plant any kind of fruit tree, consider the fruit ritually unclean for the first 3 years. Dang. Um, Yeah, when they come into the land and plant anything. Okay. During that time you must not eat it. In the 4th year all the fruit shall be dedicated as an offering to show your gratitude to me. The Lord, gratitude to me, the Lord. But in the 5th year you may eat the fruit. If you do all this, your trees will bear more fruit. I am the Lord your God. All right. There's probably some agricultural thing for that first 3 years, and then of course the 4th year would be to thank God and worship Him, just like He said. And then the 5th year, you're all good. You have awesome trees and such, blessed by God. Mm. Do not eat any meat with blood still in it. Do not practice any kind of magic. Uh, okay. Um, I don't know. Maybe because that it would make a certain sense if they could practice magic, because if they can't, they're being deceptive, and they're probably worshiping some other god or goddess, so that's a thing. Um, and also, their other people could go all Salem on the person, or I mean, after all, they worshipped a golden calf that they had made out of their own jewelry. So if somebody started using magic, they'd be like, "Oh, hey, this person's a god. Let's worship him because he's a god or something." And it's like, so that makes sense. I'm already 10 minutes in, and I've only gone one chapter so far. I'm sorry I've been talking a lot, but that's part of the point of this series is to talk about it. So, so yeah. Do not cut the hair on the sides of your head, or trim your beard, or tattoo yourselves, or cut gashes in your body to mourn for the dead. I am the Lord. I think with that stuff, actually with possibly that whole paragraph, I think that's because of certain pagan traditions and such. So it's essentially like, hey, don't go doing this stuff that's ritual, pagan-y stuff, worshiping other gods, because that's disrespectful to homeboy, the Lord your God. So I think that's what that's talking about. Maybe that's some of the things that don't quite make sense are because those are things practiced from other religions and stuff. And if you're doing them because of those other religions, not so good. So I can understand that being a thing. I think God's a lot more forgiving of those sorts of things. Like, he's not going to bash us for celebrating Christmas, which is not a Christian holiday. It is it's mixing a Christian thing with pagan holiday stuff. Like, if you do your research, there's a lot of pagan tradition that just Christians fused so that they would worship Christ and stuff. So like, don't go in a whole bash about this. I don't know. It makes sense. God was just trying to keep them from straying. And I think nowadays he'd be more forgiving of things like that because, people who would cut the hair on the sides of their head, trim their beards, tattoo themselves, I don't know about cutting gashes in it. Oh, well, yeah, cutting gashes in their body. You wouldn't be like, curse you for worshiping other people because they're not. They're doing it as self-expression, I guess. He'd be sad at people cutting gashes at themselves. That'd be sad. God would cry. God would want to give you a hug. I want to give you a hug. Continuing, do not disgrace your daughters by making them temple prostitutes. I'd say that's a generally good idea to not make your daughter into a temple prostitute. If you do, you will turn to other gods, and the land will be full of immorality. Yeah, sounds about right. Keep the Sabbath and honor the place where I am worshipped. I am the Lord. Makes sense. Do not go for advice to people who consult the spirits of the dead. If you do, you will be ritually unclean. I am the Lord your God. I think, again, that's some pagan worship type stuff, and also some of those people are full of baloney. Like the fortune tellers that you'd see at Carnival. Like, if it's someone who is going off of sort of energy vibes, I can see it being like a legitimate thing. So if it's just like you're an empath or you have like that sort of spiritual connection sort of thing, that's one thing. If it's like a paganism sort of thing, demon voodoo magic sort of thing, then that's not so good. Or at least in relation to the timeline. Honestly, as far as I'm concerned, you can do your religion, you can do whatever you want and believe whatever you want. The only problem that I have is when you use whatever your faith is to promote hate, to excuse and say allow and rationalize your hate. Hate, I do not approve of. Any religion, any faith, any belief that promotes hate, I am automatically against. No hate. Nah. Continuing, show respect for old people and honor them. Reverently obey me, I am the Lord. It makes sense. They have experience. Now, granted, some of them are jerks, so you can keep that in mind, but you should be respectful of your elders and such. That's kind of a thing. Do not mistreat foreigners who are living in your land. Treat them as you would a fellow Israelite, and love them as you love yourselves. Remember that you were once foreigners to the land of Egypt. I am the Lord your God. I can make that applicable today because we were foreigners. Our ancestors, they were pilgrims, and then they moved to America to escape religious persecution. And now we got all kinds of people who are all against like Muslims and refugees and such, and we're persecuting them. And it's like our ancestors came to America to be free of religious persecution. And now we are persecuting people for their religion. Like, what is that? You are ignoring one of the primary foundations that this country was founded upon. Like, what even are you doing? That's not American. And I don't care what you want to say with the whole America, guns, eagles, fast food, burgers, and porn. No. No. As far as I'm concerned, being persecuting people for their religion, that is un-American. Bullying people, being a complete and utter jerk, that is un-American. Basically, as far as I'm concerned, I just about don't live in America anymore. I live in Murica. Just apostrophe Murica. Might as well be a Ka. Just because it's not, you get it. But it's just, I loved back when it was a thing. When you referred to something about your country proudly and you said it was American, or if there was something that wasn't okay, so it was un-American. I miss those days. I miss having pride in my country. And now I don't. Because just there's so much messed up with us. And it's not even okay. Like, I understand we are broken people living in a broken world. But what happened to when we were a country that tried to be the best country? Not try to be better than everyone else, but try to, like, there's trying to be better than everyone else, be like, haha, I'm better than you. And then there's trying to be better than everyone else because you want to be good. You want to be better than the bad aspects. Not just be better so that you can have bragging rights. Like, what happened to those days of wanting to be the best that you can be? What happened? When did we become so focused on not being the best that we could be? Like, what happened? Honestly. I digress. Do not cheat anyone by using false measures of length, weight, or quantity. Use honest scales, honest weights, and honest measures. I am the Lord your God, and I brought you out of Egypt. Obey all my laws and commands. I am the Lord. Yeah, don't be a jerk and try to cheat people out of money, because that's just not okay. Well, we're finally 18 minutes in the video, and we're finished with chapter 19. I had a lot to talk about with that one. It was basically going over the Ten Commandments with a little bit of other stuff, but basically that was Ten Commandments right there. Chapter 20, Penalties for Disobedience. The Lord told Moses to say to the people of Israel, any of you or any foreigner living among you who gives any of his children to be used in the worship of the god Molech shall be stoned to death by the whole community. Alright, I need to look up this god Molech thing. It keeps coming up. If anyone gives one of his children to Molech and makes my sacred tent unclean and disgraces my holy name, I will turn against him and will no longer consider him one of my people. But if the community ignores what he has done and does not put him to death, I myself will turn against the man and his whole family, and against all who join him in being unfaithful to me and worshiping Molech. I will no longer consider them my people. Sorry, I was looking ahead. If anyone goes for advice to the people who consult the spirits of the dead, I will turn against him and will no longer consider him one of my people. Keep yourselves holy, because I am the Lord your God. Obey my laws, because I am the Lord, and I make you holy. The Lord gave the following regulations. Anyone who curses his father or his mother shall be put to death. He is responsible for his own death. And see, that comes into play later with the parable of the prodigal son. So, anyway, if a man commits adultery with the wife of a fellow Israelite, both he and the woman shall be put to death. I think that's I don't think that counts rape. That doesn't count rape. I think, like, at least I don't think it does. Because they had some stuff about raping that was a little, like, nowadays, we wouldn't so much approve of it, per se. Um, but I think that's talking about adultery, like, yeah, they're both doing, an affair. There we go. That's the word I was looking for. A man who has intercourse with one of his father's wives disgraces his father, and both he and the woman shall be put to death. Again, think it's talking about affair. Pretty sure. They are responsible for their own death. Yeah, pretty sure it's talking about affair. If a man has intercourse with his daughter-in-law, they shall both be put to death. They have committed incest and are responsible for their own death. General rule, don't sleep with uh, someone who is on a level, like in your own family, who's on a level above you or below you. So, because like you get what I'm saying. Like, if your father's with somebody, don't sleep with that person. I mean, let's just look at the fact that don't sleep with someone who's married. Don't sleep with a married person. Like, just in general, why is that even a thing? Why, like I can get it being a thing that exists. It annoys me, but I get it being a thing that exists. But the fact that it is more significant of a thing, more frequent of a thing, like, why? Why? I mean, if it happens because of rape, then yes, rape is bad. But I understand that aspect. It just annoys me that you're with somebody and you supposedly love that person, but then you go and have relations with somebody else. Like, seriously, like, why? Just faithfulness, loyalty, some of the best aspects of humanity just getting thrown out the window. There are times where I really do not like humanity. There's, but then I digress. I get over it. I see people being amazing, and I'm like, okay, we're not all going down the crapper. Oh lordy, the Lord gave you. No, I read that. I have to figure out where I was, and so. Oh gosh, now it's getting into that sort of thing. If a man has sexual relations with another man, they have done a disgusting thing, and both shall be put to death. Again, I'm going to say that that is about, just promiscuity and unfaithfulness and stuff, not loving committed relationship. I believe in a God who loves, and love is a big thing. And so doing something like that that's just out of lust is not okay. But in, like a modern society where we have men who love men and women who love women, and I'm talking about love, as in loyal, committed, true love, I don't think that God has a problem with that. I don't think God has a problem with one human being loving another human being. I mean, after all, if a man can have multiple wives back in that sort of day, like I don't know. It's, again, I believe in a God of love, and I think that he's okay with a loving, committed relationship, whether it's a man and a man, or a woman and a woman, or a man and a woman. However, then you get to bestiality, and that's not okay. Now, if you're going to talk about furries where they're humanoid and that sort of thing is like compatible or something like that, there's a fuzzy blurring of the line, but that's a different topic for a different day. I believe in a God that wants everyone to love each other and has no problem with a loving, committed relationship. If you are against homosexuality, or if you view it as a sin, or however, fine. Just don't go thinking that you can go and be a jerk because of it. Because not up to you. You don't judge. Big guy judges. And you don't go persecuting, because honestly, everybody, like, I cannot think of a single person who is not guilty of at least one sin that is mentioned in the Bible. Wearing clothes of uh, made of multiple materials. I mean, that's something that gets a lot of people right off the bat. or at least I would imagine, and just any of the other things that are in here. So if you're going to persecute somebody for having a loving, committed relationship with someone of the same gender, uh, how about you look at what sins you're guilty of? Because in God's eyes, no sin is worse than another sin. They're all bad. So stop using your religion and your faith to justify hate. Pete's sake. Anyway, continuing. If a man marries a woman and her mother, all three shall be burned to death because of the disgraceful thing they have done. Such a thing must not be permitted among you. I guess that makes sense, cause yeah, like if you have intercourse with a woman's mother, that's one thing. If you have an intercourse with a woman, that's one thing. But if you have intercourse with a woman and her mother, that's kind of weird. That's kind of weird. And as far as being put to death, I think there were some, and I think that was something that my pastor talked about, was that with the being put to death, I don't know if that was necessarily exactly as God may have intended it. It was potentially, and as again, some of that's translation, so that's a possibility. But it's thinking of it more as now, more modern times, not putting everybody to death. Maybe it's supposed to be, this is how bad that is. It is so bad that the punishment for it, like, it's so bad that it's like punishable by death. Like, not really punishable by death, but like it's that bad. Like, you have people who go killing each other, and you're like, oh, you should punish that person, give them the electric chair, hang them, or something like that. Well, this sin, it's that bad. So I'd like to think that it's like that, but then again, if that's how they're reading it back then they're probably like, okay, if someone does that, dead, kill him. And it's just like, stop the hate. Anyway. I'm so salty. If a man has sexual relations with an animal, he and the animal shall be put to death. Yeah, like I was mentioning that before. If a woman tries to have sexual relations with an animal, she and the animal shall be put to death. They're responsible for their own death. Yeah, that's kind of weird to have relations with an animal. Now, if there was such thing as an animal that was humanoid, and I'm not talking monkeys. I'm talking like humanoid as in like what you'd see in like an anime or a cartoon or something. Or aliens in TV shows or movies. Like, yeah, that kind of blurs the line a little, because they have more cognitive decision for that sort of thing. You get what I'm saying, and I'd rather not. I've spent so much time talking, and I'd like to get through this chapter. Sorry. If a man marries his sister or half sister, they shall be publicly disgraced and driven out of the community. I don't know how much I agree with that. He has had intercourse with his sister and must suffer the consequences. If a man has intercourse with a woman during her monthly period, both of them are to be driven out of the community because they have broken the regulations about ritual uncleanness. And again, like, I, I don't know. I don't entirely agree. And I think there are some of these things that potentially God's gotten over, I guess. I mean, it has been, thousands of years. And it's just, I believe in a loving, forgiving God. And so, for some of those things, there are some things where it's hard for me to believe that that's how God would be. It's not quite the God I believe in. And you can complain at me about picking and choosing what I believe from the Bible. But what I'm picking and choosing is that God is a loving and forgiving God. Now, granted, He's going to call you out when you're messing up and making mistakes. But He loves you and He forgives you. All He asks is that you love Him and that you try to be the best that you can be. Like, that's all He asks. Seriously. Love him and be the best that you can be. Love each other. That's all he asks. All he asks is love. If a man has intercourse with his aunt, both of them must suffer the consequences for incest. If a man has intercourse with his uncle's wife, he disgraces his uncle, and he and the woman will pay the penalty. Neither one will have children. If a man takes his brother's wife, they will die childless. He has done a ritually unclean thing and has disgraced his brother. I'm just not going to go into it. I'm just going to keep going. The Lord said, "Keep all my laws and commands so that you will not be rejected by the land of Canaan into which I am bringing you. Do not adopt the customs of the people who live there. I am driving out those pagans so they can enter so that you can enter the land. They have disgusted me with all their evil practices. But I have promised you this rich and fertile land as your possession, and I will give it to you. I am the Lord your God, and I have set you apart from the other nations. So then, you must make a clear distinction between animals and birds that are ritually clean and those that are not. Do not eat unclean animals or birds. I have declared them unclean, and eating them would make you unclean. If you shall be holy and belong only to me, because I am the Lord and I am holy, I have set you apart from the other nations so that you would belong to me alone. Any man or woman who consults the spirits of the dead shall be stoned to death. Any person who does this is responsible for his own death." Okay. That's where I'm going to end it for today. There was a lot that I felt the need to speak up about, either to just give my 2 cents or to give some interpretation / context on. And I don't know. If you like the series, I appreciate that you watch it. If you think I'm rambling a bit, with this, I don't think it's too bad. Like, sure, I probably have moments where I get bad, but I'm sharing my thoughts on it, and I think that's part of the reason for this. I mean, granted, you might just be, wanting to watch it so that you can have someone read the Bible to you, but honestly, it should be something that you can discuss. Not just that you have feed as white noise into your head. So, oh yeah, I remember hearing that at one point. Having some discussion about it, and hearing someone else's thoughts and views, and how that may or may not affect your own, or if you want to go ahead and comment and give me some insight in your 2 cents. Like, honestly, that's part of what should be done with reading the Bible. Is it should be talked about. Why is this rule this way? What kind of God do we believe in? Do we believe in a judge, jury, executioner God, or do we believe in a love you and forgive you sort of God? And so, if you feel like I wasted your time, I apologize. I apologize that you feel that way. If you don't mind, if you appreciated my thoughts on the matter, then thank you. I appreciate you appreciating me. And with all of that being said, and it being over a half hour into the video, like and favorite if you enjoyed. Subscribe to become a VIP today, and I will see you all next time. Have a great day.